Life has a way of testing our perspective. When things go wrong, when plans fail, or when people disappoint us, it's easy to point the finger outward, but growth begins the moment you turn that finger inward. If it's always someone else's fault, you're not growing. Blaming others may protect your ego for a moment, but it robs you of your power to change. Every challenge, every setback, conflict holds a hidden lesson, one that only reveals itself when you take responsibility. Growth begins the moment you stop pointing fingers. When things go wrong, when life disappoints you, when people let you down, it's tempting to search for someone to blame. It's easier to say, "They failed me," or "They made me angry," or "If it wasn't for them, I'd be doing better." But every time you do that, you give away your power. You surrender control of your emotions, your progress, and your destiny to someone else's actions. The truth is hard, but it's liberating. If it's always someone else's fault, you're not growing. Responsibility isn't a punishment, it's a pathway to transformation. Person who constantly blames others builds invisible walls around their potential. Those walls may feel like protection, but they're really prisons. Growth happens only when you decide to take ownership of your part. Your attitude, your reactions, your choices. When you stop saying, "It's not my fault," and start asking, "What can I learn from this?" you take the first step toward maturity and self-mastery. The habit of blaming others begins early in life. As children, we learn to avoid punishment by shifting responsibility. "He started it. It wasn't me. She made me do it." We carry that same mindset into adulthood, only the stakes get higher. Of broken toys, it becomes broken relationships, missed opportunities, and unfulfilled dreams. You can't fix a problem you refuse to own. The more you point fingers outward, the less progress you make inward. Every complaint about what someone else did wrong keeps you stuck where you are. Yet, accountability is not about guilt. It's about growth. It's not saying everything is your fault. It's saying, "I am willing to see what I can do differently." That shift in perspective changes everything. It transforms victims into victors, observers into leaders, frustration into freedom. You see, life isn't about what happens to you. It's about how you respond. You can't control other people's behavior. You can control your reaction, your attitude, and your mindset. When someone betrays you, you can choose bitterness or you can choose boundaries. When a plan fails, you can choose to blame luck or you can choose to learn strategy. When someone criticizes you, you can choose to defend yourself or you can choose to listen and grow. Every situation gives you a choice to stay the same or to evolve. Blame locks you in place, responsibility unlocks the door. The most powerful people in the world, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually, are not those who have perfect lives. They're the ones who take full ownership of everything within their control. They don't waste time waiting for others to change. They don't say, "When they apologize, I'll move on," or "When they support me, I'll start." They move regardless, because they understand that maturity means doing what's right even when it's hard, even when no one else does. By the rule of my life, my responsibility. That doesn't mean they take blame for everything that happens. It means they take ownership of how they respond to everything that happens. When you stop blaming, you start building. You stop living in reaction and start living with intention. Stop letting external circumstances define your inner world. The more responsibility you take, the more control you gain. Think about it. If your boss, your partner, or your past is always the reason for your unhappiness, then your happiness will always depend on them. If you decide that your peace is your responsibility, then nothing and no one can take it away from you. That's power. Real, quiet, unshakable power, the kind that comes from self-awareness and discipline. Personal growth demands honesty. You can't evolve by pretending. You have to face the mirror and say, yes, I played a part in this. Maybe you ignored red flags. Maybe you didn't set boundaries. Maybe you allowed fear to guide your choices. It's not about beating yourself up. It's about waking yourself up. Awareness is the first step toward change. The moment you recognize your role, you gain the ability to rewrite your story. That's how healing happens, not through blame, but through ownership. Blame is easy because it keeps you comfortable. It's easier to say, they're the problem, than to admit, I might need to change. But comfort is the enemy of progress. Growth doesn't happen in the blame zone, it happens in the truth zone. When you accept that life is 10% what happens and 90% how you handle it, you stop being a victim of circumstances and become the architect of your own destiny. This mindset shift separates those who stay stuck from those who rise. Those who grow don't wait for the world to be fair. They learn how to thrive in it as it is. Sometimes, people misunderstand responsibility as self-blame. Responsibility isn't about taking the blame for others' mistakes. It's about focusing your energy on what you can control. You can't control what someone said, but you can control how long you let it hurt you. You can't control whether someone supports your dream, but you can control whether you keep going. You can't control who stays in your life, but you can control how you treat yourself when they leave. Every ounce of energy you spend blaming someone else is energy you could have used to rebuild, to improve, to heal. Taking responsibility is not weakness, wisdom. It's saying, I won't let this situation define me, I will define how I respond to it. It's what turns pain into purpose. Every struggle you've faced has something to teach you, if you're humble enough to listen. Pain is not meant to punish, it's meant to shape. Blame makes you blind to the lesson, but ownership helps you see it clearly. You begin to notice patterns, behaviors, habits that keep you repeating the same mistakes. And once you see the pattern, you can change it. Real power, the ability to transform your experiences into wisdom. Responsibility also strengthens your character. It teaches you discipline and self-control. When you stop making excuses, you develop resilience. You learn that you can fall and rise again without waiting for anyone to lift you. You start believing in your ability to rebuild, to adapt, and to grow. Become dependable, not just for others, but for yourself. You start trusting your own word, and that trust becomes confidence. The kind of confidence that doesn't need validation because it comes from integrity. In life, people will disappoint you, situations will fail you, and plans will fall apart. But remember this: your reaction is your responsibility. Blaming others may comfort you temporarily, but it keeps you powerless permanently. The only way to reclaim your power is to own your story. Every mistake, every wrong turn, reset back, it's all raw material for your growth. You can let it break you, or you can let it build you. The choice is always yours. The next time you feel the urge to blame, pause and ask yourself, what is this moment showing me about me? That question alone can change your life. Maybe it's showing you where you need more patience, more boundaries, or more courage. Whatever it reveals, accept it as guidance, not criticism. Life isn't happening to you. It's happening for you. Every experience is designed to evolve your understanding, to strengthen your spirit, prepare you for what's next. When you take responsibility, you stop chasing perfection and start embracing progress. No longer need to prove yourself. You just focus on improving yourself. You stop expecting others to make you happy because you realize happiness is a skill, not a gift. Stop needing to be right because you care more about being real. That's what growth looks like. Quiet confidence built on accountability. In the end, remember this truth: your growth begins where your excuses end. Time you stop saying, "It's their fault," and start saying, "It's my opportunity." You step into a new level of strength. You become the author of your story instead of a character in someone else's. And that's where the real journey begins. The journey of self-mastery, leadership, and true freedom. Growth is not a destination, it's a daily decision. Choose ownership. Choose responsibility. Choose to rise. Because when you do, you'll discover the most empowering truth of all. You were never powerless. Just hadn't taken your power back yet. Self-awareness is the foundation of every form of personal evolution. The invisible line between living on autopilot and living with intention. Become self-aware is to stand in front of the mirror of your own mind and truly look, not at your face or your appearance, but at the beliefs, habits, emotions, and reactions that shape the person you've become. Most people spend their lives reacting, defending, and repeating, realizing that they're living according to unconscious patterns. They respond to life the same way, think the same thoughts, the same circumstances without ever asking, "Why do I do what I do?" Self-awareness begins with that question. It's the quiet courage to look within, even when what you find is uncomfortable. Realizing that the biggest battles are not against others, but within yourself. The angry driver on the road, the boss who frustrates you, the friend who disappoints you, each one is a mirror reflecting something you need to understand about yourself. Maybe it's your patience, maybe it's your need for validation, or maybe it's the fear of not being enough. Every reaction you have is an invitation to know yourself better. When you start observing yourself instead of judging yourself, everything changes. You begin to see that emotions are not enemies. They're messages. Tells you where your boundaries are. Fear shows you where you lack trust. Envy reveals what you desire but haven't yet pursued. Sadness reminds you of what truly matters to your heart. These emotions are not here to hurt you, they're here to guide you. But when you deny them, suppress them, or blame others for them, you lose the chance to grow. Self-awareness is about owning your emotions without letting them own you. It's the ability to feel deeply but respond wisely. Most people think awareness means analyzing yourself endlessly, but it's not about overthinking. It's about observing. It's about watching your mind the way a calm lake reflects the sky, still, clear, and honest. When you observe without judgment, you create space between what happens and how you react. In that space lies the power to choose differently, to grow consciously instead of repeating unconsciously. Growth without self-awareness is like planting seeds in darkness. You can't see what's actually happening beneath the surface. You might be working hard, chasing success, or building relationships, but without understanding your own patterns, you'll keep cycling through the same lessons. That's why self-awareness is so powerful. It reveals the patterns that keep you stuck. You begin to notice that you attract similar situations over and over. Different faces, different settings, but the same emotional outcome. That's not coincidence, that's your life asking you to pay attention. The universe keeps giving you the same exam until you learn the lesson. You recognize the pattern, you can change it. And change always starts with awareness. Without awareness, there can be no accountability, and without accountability, there can be no true growth. To become self-aware, you must first learn to slow down. Modern world rewards speed, fast answers, fast judgments, fast results, but awareness grows in stillness. It happens in the quiet moments when you sit with your thoughts instead of escaping them. Silence is not empty, it's full of answers. When you take a few moments each day to reflect, how did I feel today? Why did I react that way? What triggered that emotion? You begin to uncover the deeper layers of your identity. Self-awareness doesn't demand perfection, it invites curiosity. When you're curious, you stop punishing yourself for your mistakes and start learning from them. You stop saying, I can't believe I did that, and start saying, that's interesting. Why did I do that? That small shift turns judgment into wisdom. Awareness also requires honesty, the kind of honesty that goes beyond social masks and surface-level answers. It's easy to deceive others, but the hardest person to deceive is yourself. True self-awareness demands that you confront your ego, that voice that always wants to be right, to be in control, to be admired. The ego hides behind excuses and stories that make you comfortable but keep you small. It says, I'm not the problem. I already know that. It's just who I am. But awareness begins when you silence that voice long enough to hear the truth underneath. Maybe you're not as patient as you thought. Maybe you fear rejection more than you admit. Maybe you crave validation because you doubt your own worth. These realizations can be uncomfortable, even painful, but they are the roots of freedom. You can't heal what you refuse to see. You can't change what you don't acknowledge. Honesty with yourself is the highest act of self-respect. The journey of self-awareness is not a one-time event, it's a lifelong practice. Every experience, every relationship, every challenge gives you another chance to know yourself better. Life will keep showing you who you are until you pay attention. People you attract are teachers. The conflicts you face are mirrors. The emotions you feel are messages. Once you understand this, you stop resenting your experiences and start learning from them. Even the most painful moments carry wisdom if you're willing to look beyond the surface. The argument that broke your heart might teach you about your communication style. The job you lost might teach you about your real passion. The disappointment you felt might teach you patience and resilience. Every lesson is hidden inside awareness, but awareness without action is only observation. The purpose of self-awareness is transformation. Once you know your patterns, you have to be willing to change them. If you notice you often complain, practice gratitude. If you realize you react defensively, practice patience. If you discover you fear failure, take small, courageous steps anyway. Awareness gives you the map, but growth requires the movement. Change won't happen overnight, but every time you choose awareness over reaction, you strengthen your emotional intelligence. You begin to live more intentionally. You start choosing words that build instead of destroy, thoughts that empower instead of limit, habits that nurture instead of drain. One of the greatest signs of self-awareness is humility. The more you know yourself, the less you need to prove yourself. You stop comparing, competing, and chasing approval because you realize you're not here to be better than others. You're here to become the best version of yourself. Humility opens the door to learning. It allows you to say, I was wrong, I don't know, or I need to improve, without shame. People who lack awareness often hide behind pride, but those who are truly aware understand that vulnerability is strength. When you admit your weaknesses, you gain the power to transform them into wisdom. Self-awareness also improves how you communicate and connect with others. When you understand your own emotions, you become more empathetic toward others. You stop reacting to people's behavior and start responding to their needs. You realize that everyone's actions come from their own fears, hopes. That understanding breeds compassion. You no longer take everything personally, and that alone can bring peace into your relationships. Awareness teaches you to listen deeply, not just to others but to yourself. You begin to notice the tone of your inner voice. Is it kind or cruel, encouraging or critical? The way you speak to yourself determines the energy you bring to the world. Self-awareness allows you to turn that inner voice into your greatest ally. Becoming self-aware doesn't mean you'll never make mistakes again. It means you'll recognize them faster, recover from them quicker, and learn from them deeper. You stop fearing failure because you see it as feedback. Stop running from pain because you know it's a teacher. You stop avoiding responsibility because you understand it's a form of empowerment. Awareness gives you clarity, and clarity gives you confidence. You no longer wander aimlessly, reacting to life. You begin to walk purposefully, creating it. Self-awareness is the art of coming home to yourself. It's peeling away everything false until what's left is real. It's understanding your light and your shadow, your strengths and your struggles, your gifts and your growing edges. When you know yourself, you stop being lost in the noise of the world. You start making choices that align with your values. You begin to live not by default, but by design. And as your awareness grows, so does your freedom. The freedom to choose peace over chaos, growth over comfort, and truth over illusion. Self-awareness doesn't make life easier, but it makes life richer, more meaningful, and far more authentic. Because once you truly see yourself, no longer live blindly, you begin to live boldly, intentionally, and with purpose. And that, more than anything else, beginning of real growth. The kind that no one can take away from you. Emotional intelligence is the bridge between reaction and reflection, between chaos and clarity, between existing and evolving. It is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage your emotions while also understanding and influencing the emotions of others. Many people believe intelligence is about knowledge, logic, and analysis, but true wisdom lies in emotional balance. You can have a brilliant mind, but if you cannot manage your anger, your ego, or your fear, sabotage your own success. Emotional intelligence begins with awareness, but it blossoms through self-control. It's not about suppressing your emotions, it's about understanding them deeply enough that they no longer control you. When something upsets you, when you feel that rush of frustration or the sting of disappointment, emotional intelligence whispers, pause. It invites you to breathe before you speak, to reflect before you react, and to choose peace over pride. In that tiny space between stimulus and response lies your greatest power. The power to decide who you want to be in this moment. Every time you choose patience over anger, compassion over judgment, and understanding over ego, you strengthen your emotional intelligence. It's not about never feeling anger, sadness, or fear. It's about becoming the master of those emotions rather than their prisoner. When you start developing emotional intelligence, you realize that emotions are not right or wrong. They simply are. They are signals from your inner world, guiding you to what needs attention. Anger might be telling you a boundary has been crossed. Anxiety might be revealing a lack of preparation or trust. Your full attention. Jealousy might be showing you a hidden desire you haven't pursued. Instead of pushing these feelings away or pretending they don't exist, emotional intelligence invites you to decode them, to ask, what is this emotion trying to teach me? You begin to see emotions as information, not enemies. When you treat your emotions with curiosity instead of criticism, you start to grow in emotional maturity. You learn that feeling deeply doesn't make you weak. It makes you human. But responding wisely makes you strong. In a world that often glorifies reaction, emotional intelligence teaches restraint. It reminds you that you don't have to attend every argument you're invited to. You don't have to respond to every provocation. You don't have to explain, defend, or retaliate. Sometimes silence is power. Sometimes walking away is wisdom. And sometimes forgiveness is freedom. Emotional intelligence is not about letting others win, about letting yourself stay in peace. It teaches you that your energy is precious, that you don't have to waste it trying to control others or prove your point. You start valuing calm more than being right. And when you reach that point, you become unshakable. You stop reacting to people's moods because you've learned to regulate your own. One of the hardest lessons in emotional intelligence is learning that not everything deserves your reaction. Every situation that tests your patience is an opportunity to strengthen your character. Every person who irritates you gives you a chance to practice compassion. Every moment that challenges you emotionally is a classroom where you can learn about yourself. It's easy to stay calm when life goes your way, but real growth happens when you remain composed in the middle of chaos. Emotional intelligence doesn't promise a life without problems. It teaches you how to remain centered through them. People with emotional intelligence understand that emotions are contagious. Your energy speaks before your words do. When you walk into a room filled with tension, you can either absorb it or transform it. Leaders with high emotional intelligence choose the latter. They set the tone with their calm presence, their patient tone, and their ability to listen. They don't just react to the emotions around them. They regulate them. That's what makes them magnetic. People trust those who can stay grounded when others are losing control. It's not about being emotionless. It's about being emotionally wise. Emotional intelligence also changes how you relate to others. When you can recognize the emotions behind people's words, stop taking things so personally. You begin to see that most anger is pain in disguise, that criticism often hides insecurity, that arrogance is just fear wearing a mask. You stop seeing enemies and start seeing humans. That understanding opens the door to empathy, and empathy is the language of leadership. It allows you to connect deeply, to build trust, and to inspire rather than intimidate. When people feel understood, they lower their defenses. They open their hearts. And that's where real influence begins. Not through power or position, but through emotional connection. Developing emotional intelligence requires practice, patience, and humility. Your full attention. You'll still have moments when your emotions get the best of you, when you say things you regret, or react too quickly. That's okay. Growth isn't about never slipping. It's about recognizing it faster and correcting it sooner. The goal isn't perfection, it's awareness. Every time you catch yourself reacting, you're already growing. The apology you make when your emotions get ahead of your wisdom is another step toward emotional maturity. The more you practice self-reflection, the more control you gain over your emotional landscape. Emotional intelligence also helps you manage stress and uncertainty. Life will always throw surprises your way, some beautiful, some painful. But how you handle those moments defines your strength. People who lack emotional intelligence crumble under pressure because they let their emotions dictate their decisions. For those who have mastered their emotions use calm as their compass. They understand that clarity cannot exist in chaos. When challenges arise, they pause, assess, and act with wisdom. They understand that emotions are like waves. You can't stop them from coming, but you can learn to surf them. Another vital aspect of emotional intelligence is self-compassion. So many people are kind to others, but cruel to themselves. They forgive everyone else, but hold themselves hostage to past mistakes. Emotional intelligence teaches you that you cannot give compassion to others if you deny it to yourself. You learn to speak to yourself the way you would to a dear friend. When you make a mistake, instead of saying, "I'm so stupid," you say, "I made an error, but I can learn." This shift transforms shame into growth. You begin to see that emotions are not meant to be judged, but understood. And when you treat yourself with kindness, you create emotional safety within your own heart. A place where healing can finally happen. Emotionally intelligent people are not ruled by ego, they are guided by awareness. They don't need to prove their worth, because they know who they are. They don't let temporary feelings lead to permanent decisions. They don't let someone's bad day ruin their peace. They understand that emotional maturity means choosing long-term peace over short-term satisfaction. It means responding to ignorance with patience, hate with understanding, and to disappointment with resilience. That's strength. That's leadership. In relationships, emotional intelligence is the glue that holds everything together. Communication, trust, and respect all flow from emotional awareness. When you're emotionally intelligent, you listen not to reply, but to understand. You speak not to win, but to connect. Express yourself without attacking, and you set boundaries without guilt. You realize that love without emotional intelligence becomes chaos, that friendships without empathy become fragile, and that leadership without self-control becomes tyranny. Every meaningful connection in your life depends on how well you manage emotions, yours and others. Perhaps the greatest gift of emotional intelligence is peace. When you learn to manage your emotions, you stop being controlled by circumstances. You stop chasing validation. You stop fighting every battle. You start living with a quiet confidence that nothing outside of you can disturb the calm you've built within. That's emotional freedom, the ability to feel deeply but stay centered, to care deeply but not crumble, to love deeply but not lose yourself. So, as you move forward, remember this truth: your emotions are not problems to be solved. They are teachers to be understood. Every emotion carries wisdom, if you're willing to listen. The more you understand yourself, the more you can understand the world around you. And the more emotionally intelligent you become, the more life opens up to you. Because emotional intelligence is not just a skill. It's a way of being. It's the art of staying kind in a cruel world, calm in a storm, and grounded in a world that constantly tries to shake you. It's not about changing who you are, it's about mastering who you are. And when you do that, you don't just survive life. You lead it gracefully, powerfully, and with purpose. Forgiveness is one of the hardest and yet most liberating acts of emotional maturity. Your full attention. It is a decision that sets you free from the weight of pain, resentment, and regret that you've been carrying for far too long. Most people misunderstand forgiveness. They think it's about excusing what someone else did or pretending that the hurt never happened. But true forgiveness has nothing to do with approval and everything to do with release. It is not about letting someone off the hook for their actions, about letting yourself off the hook for carrying the burden of their behavior. Every time you replay an old wound in your mind, you reopen it. Time you hold on to anger, you drink poison expecting someone else to get sick. Forgiveness is not about saying, "What you did is okay," about saying, "I will no longer let what you did control my peace." It is not weakness, power, the quiet kind of strength that comes from choosing freedom over fury. When you forgive, you don't erase the past, you simply refuse to let it dictate your future. And the moment you make that decision, you step into a higher version of yourself, one that values peace more than pride, healing more than hatred, and growth more than grudges. Holding on to resentment feels natural at first because it gives us a false sense of control. It's the ego's way of saying, "I won't let them win." But what we don't realize is that in holding on, we are the ones losing. We lose sleep, we lose peace. We lose the ability to be fully present in the moment. The past becomes a chain that binds us, and the mind becomes a courtroom where the trial never ends. You replay the same arguments, the same betrayals, the same heartbreaks, searching for a verdict that will make sense of the pain. Forgiveness is not a verdict, it's a release. It's walking out of that courtroom and realizing you no longer need the other person to admit guilt in order for you to find closure. You give yourself permission to heal without their apology, to move forward without their participation. That is the essence of emotional freedom. Forgiveness begins with acceptance. Acceptance that what happened, happened. It can't be undone, rewritten, or justified. The pain is real, but so is your capacity to rise above it. You don't have to condone someone's actions to acknowledge that clinging to bitterness is only hurting you. The wound may not have been your fault, but the healing is your responsibility. Life isn't fair. People disappoint us, betray us, and hurt us in ways we don't deserve. But if you let those experiences harden your heart, you allow pain to become your identity. Forgiveness melts that hardness. It doesn't make you forget, it helps you remember without breaking. It forms the story from "I suffered" to "I survived, and I grew." There's a common misconception that forgiving someone means you have to reconcile or rebuild the relationship, but that's not always true. Forgiveness is an internal act. Reconciliation is an external choice. You can forgive someone and still decide not to let them back into your life. Forgiveness doesn't require trust, it requires understanding. Trust is rebuilt through consistent action, but forgiveness is something you do for yourself, taking back the power that anger stole from you. It's looking at your reflection and saying, "I deserve peace. I choose it." When you hold on to anger, you tie your emotional well-being to another person's behavior, but when you forgive, take that power back into your hands. Forgiving others is only one part of the journey. Sometimes the hardest person to forgive is yourself. You replay your own mistakes, your regrets, your poor choices, and you punish yourself in silence. You hold yourself hostage to the what-ifs and should-haves of the past, your full attention, forgetting that you were doing the best you could with the awareness you had at the time. Self-forgiveness is not about denying responsibility. It's about learning from it. It's recognizing that guilt has a purpose only when it pushes you toward growth, not when it chains you to shame. You cannot move forward if you keep dragging your past behind you. You must forgive yourself for the moments when you didn't know better, for the times you tolerated less than you deserved, for the ways you let fear silence you. You are not your mistakes. You are the lessons they taught you. Forgiveness is not an event, it's a process. A gradual peeling away of layers of pain and pride until what's left is peace. Some days, you'll feel like you've moved on, and then something will trigger an old memory, and the hurt will resurface. That's normal. Healing is not linear. Don't confuse progress with perfection. Each time you feel the anger rise again, remind yourself that forgiveness is a practice. Every time you choose not to dwell on the pain, you strengthen your inner peace. Eventually, the memory loses its sting. You'll find that what once felt unbearable now feels like a chapter you've outgrown. You'll look back not with bitterness, but with gratitude, for the strength it gave you, for the wisdom it taught you, and for the freedom it led you to. Forgiveness also transforms your relationships with others because it expands your empathy. When you understand that people act from their own wounds, fears, and insecurities, you stop personalizing their behavior. You realize that hurt people, not because they're evil, but because they're unconscious. That doesn't excuse their actions, but it explains them. When you see others through the lens of compassion, soften your own heart. You realize that everyone is fighting a battle you can't see, and in that realization, you stop feeding the cycle of anger and begin breaking it. Empathy doesn't mean accepting disrespect, means refusing to let someone else's darkness extinguish your light. There's also a deeper spiritual truth to forgiveness. What you refuse to release, you continue to relive. Every unhealed resentment keeps you energetically tied to the moment of pain. The more you revisit it, the more you reinforce it. But when you forgive, you untangle yourself from that energetic knot. You step out of the vibration of hurt and into the vibration of healing. Forgiveness raises your frequency. It's the act of choosing love over fear, liberation over limitation. The more you forgive, the lighter you become. The lighter you become, the more freely you move through life. That's why forgiveness isn't just an emotional act, it's a spiritual cleansing. Forgiveness doesn't always come with closure. Sometimes you'll never hear, "I'm sorry." Sometimes the person who hurt you will never acknowledge the pain they caused. Forgiveness is not dependent on them. It's your choice, your gift to yourself. Closure doesn't come from their apology. It comes from your acceptance. You can choose to close the chapter yourself and say, "This story no longer defines me." That's maturity. To find peace without permission. Attention you stop waiting for others to make things right and start making things right within yourself. Learning to forgive also helps you handle new pain differently. Once you've experienced the power of letting go, realize you no longer have to carry every offense with you. You learn to address hurt with honesty, not hostility. You communicate rather than retaliate. Boundaries instead of building walls. Forgiveness teaches you that you can protect your peace without losing your compassion. It gives you emotional intelligence, teaching you that love doesn't mean tolerating harm, and strength doesn't mean suppressing pain. You can acknowledge your feelings and still choose freedom. Ultimately, forgiveness is about reclaiming your peace. It's choosing to live fully in the present instead of being haunted by the past. It's understanding that every person, including you, is doing the best they can with the awareness they have. Some people will never meet you at your level of consciousness. And that's okay. You don't forgive them because they deserve it. You forgive them because you do. Because your soul is too precious, your time too limited, energy too sacred to waste on bitterness. When you forgive, you make room for joy, creativity, and connection. You clear the emotional clutter that blocks your growth. You begin to see that the pain you endured didn't destroy you, it refined you, stripped away illusions, strengthened your spirit, and deepened your understanding of love. So let go. Not because they apologized, not because they changed, but because you deserve peace. Because carrying anger doesn't punish them, it poisons you. Because the moment you release resentment, you make space for new blessings to enter your life. Forgiveness is not forgetting the lesson. It's releasing the suffering. And once you do, back on every wound and realize it was not meant to break you but to awaken you. To teach you compassion, patience, strength, and grace. Give them your full attention. You'll see that the person you've become through forgiveness is far stronger, wiser, and freer than the person you were before the pain. And that is the quiet miracle of letting go. You don't just heal the past, you reclaim your future. Your mindset is your compass, the invisible force steering every decision, shaping every perception, and determining every outcome in your life. Whether you realize it or not, the thoughts you choose to dwell on create the emotional climate you live in. And that climate decides whether you grow or decay, whether you move forward with hope or remain trapped in doubt. Every successful person you admire once stood at the same crossroad of thought that you do now. Between fear and faith, between comfort and courage, between blaming the world and believing in possibility. The power of mindset lies not in pretending everything is perfect, but in choosing to see possibility even when life looks impossible. Your mind is not a prison. It's a powerful engine, and the direction it runs depends entirely on the beliefs you feed it. If you constantly tell yourself, "Nothing ever works out for me," your brain will subconsciously search for evidence to confirm that statement, filtering out opportunities and solutions. But when you say, "I'm capable of figuring this out," your mind shifts gears. It starts scanning for paths, resources, and possibilities. That's not magic, it's mental conditioning. The brain is a servant of belief, and it will always prove you right. A fixed mindset believes that abilities are static, that talent, intelligence, and creativity are things you either have or you don't. A growth mindset knows better. It understands that potential is built, not born, that progress is the result of effort, curiosity, and resilience. With a fixed mindset, see failure as a verdict. People with a growth mindset see it as feedback. When something doesn't work, they don't say, "I failed." They say, "I learned." That subtle shift in language changes everything. It replaces shame with strategy, defeat with direction. Every time you fall short and choose to rise again, you strengthen your mental muscles. The truth is, your life expands or contracts in proportion to your mindset. If you believe the world is hostile, you'll find threats everywhere. Believe the world is abundant, you'll see opportunities in every corner. The world doesn't change. You do. Your focus determines your experience, your perspective determines your peace. But here's the challenge. Most people never question the thoughts that run through their minds, them as truth instead of habits. Your thoughts are not facts, they are patterns. They are shaped by childhood experiences, fears, comparisons, the opinions of others. Grew up hearing, "You're not good enough," or "Success isn't for people like us." Those messages may still echo in your mind today, guiding your choices unconsciously. The work of transformation begins when you start noticing those inner voices and asking, "Is this thought serving me or sabotaging me?" Awareness is the first step toward mastery. You can't change what you don't notice. Once you identify your limiting beliefs, you can challenge them. You can rewrite them. Place "I can't" with "I can learn." You can replace "This is too hard" with "This is helping me grow." You can replace "I'll never be enough" with "I am becoming more every day." The power of positive thinking isn't about ignoring reality. It's about choosing your response to it. Life will always have obstacles, rejections, and disappointments, but a strong mindset interprets them differently. Instead of seeing them as proof that you should give up, you see them as proof that you're trying. Every setback becomes a sign that you're on the path of growth. Resilience is built not by avoiding challenges, but by facing them with the belief that you are capable of overcoming them. That belief begins in your self-talk, the quiet conversation you have with yourself all day long. If your inner dialogue is critical, harsh, or hopeless, your actions will reflect that energy. But when you speak to yourself with encouragement, compassion, and courage, you create a foundation for growth. Tell yourself you can, and eventually you will. Mindset is also about attention. What you choose to focus on consistently becomes your reality. If you constantly dwell on what's missing, you train your brain to see lack. If you focus on what's working, you train it to see abundance. Gratitude is the simplest and most powerful way to rewire your mind for positivity. Every day, take a moment to acknowledge what's going right, even the small things. The sunlight through your window, the breath in your lungs, the people who care about you, the lessons you've learned. Gratitude doesn't change your circumstances, it changes your chemistry. It activates optimism, and optimism fuels action. People often think you need to be happy to be grateful, but the truth is, you need to be grateful to be happy. Your mindset determines not only how you see the world, but also how the world sees you. When you carry a positive, grounded energy, people are drawn to you. You become someone who inspires confidence and calm. Leaders who think clearly under pressure, who find solutions instead of problems, who see possibilities instead of roadblocks. Those are people who have trained their mindset. They understand that their reactions shape results. You cannot control every event in your life, but you can always control how you interpret it. The strongest people are not those who never struggle, they are those who stay centered while everything else is shifting. They refuse to give their power to panic. They anchor themselves in perspective, asking, "What can I learn? What can I do? Can I grow from this?" Another key element of mindset is visualization, the ability to see your success before it happens. Great achievement begins as a mental image. Athletes visualize winning the game before they step on the field. Speakers imagine inspiring audiences before they walk on stage. Entrepreneurs picture their ideas changing lives before they ever make their first sale. Your brain doesn't know the difference between imagination and experience when you visualize with emotion and repetition. Your subconscious begins to believe it's already true. And what your mind believes, your actions begin to align with. Visualization is rehearsal for reality. When you see yourself as capable, worthy, and prepared, you naturally take actions that make that vision come to life. But sustaining a strong mindset requires discipline. You have to feed it daily, through the books you read, the people you surround yourself with, and the thoughts you entertain. If you constantly engage with negativity, gossip, or fear-based content, it's like eating junk food for your mind. You can't expect clarity or courage from a mind that's being fed with confusion and comparison. Protect your mental diet. Choose inspiration over irritation. Fill your mind with stories of resilience, with voices that lift you higher, with ideas that challenge and stretch you. Surround yourself with people who remind you of your strength, not your weakness. Mindset mastery also means accepting discomfort as part of growth. Every time you step outside your comfort zone, your mind tries to pull you back with fear. It whispers, "What if you fail? What if you're not ready?" But that fear is not a warning, it's a signal that you're expanding. Courage isn't the absence of fear, it's moving forward despite it. When you push through fear, your brain learns that discomfort is survivable. What once terrified you becomes your new normal. That's how you grow, suddenly become fearless. You become practiced at doing hard things. Your mindset shapes not just your success, but your identity. Every choice you make reinforces who you believe yourself to be. If you see yourself as someone disciplined, you act accordingly. You see yourself as a victim, you act accordingly. The outer world reflects the inner one. So, if you want to change your life, start by changing your self-concept. Speak to yourself as someone who is capable, resilient, and resourceful. Every time you choose belief over doubt, you strengthen your inner leader. Every time you respond with calm instead of chaos, you prove to yourself that you are in control. In the end, mindset is the foundation of growth, communication, and leadership. It's the silent force that determines whether you see problems or possibilities, excuses or solutions, obstacles or opportunities. Life will test you. It will throw challenges that shake your confidence and moments that tempt you to give up. But when your mindset is rooted in resilience, gratitude, and faith, you won't just survive, you'll evolve. You'll start to see that every experience, no matter how painful, preparing you for something greater. Your mindset becomes your anchor, keeping you steady when everything else feels uncertain. So guard it fiercely, nurture it daily, and remember your mind can be your greatest enemy or your greatest ally. Choose the thoughts that empower you. Choose the beliefs that move you forward. Because at the end of the day, success doesn't begin in the world. It begins in the mind. When you master your mindset, you master your life. Communication is leadership in motion, the living bridge that connects thought to influence, vision to reality, and hearts to action, and it is through the way you express yourself that people learn who you are, what you stand for, and whether they can trust you to lead them. Every great leader, from the smallest community guide to the most renowned figure in history, mastered one essential truth: communication is not just about speaking. It is about connecting. It's not about impressing others with how much you know, but about inspiring them to believe in what's possible. The words you choose, the tone you use, presence you carry are all extensions of your inner clarity. When you speak with authenticity, people listen. When you speak with empathy, seen. And when you speak with conviction, they follow. But to reach that level of communication, you must first learn to align your message with your mindset. You cannot communicate confidence if your thoughts are filled with doubt, and you cannot speak peace if your heart is filled with chaos. Your words mirror your inner world. So, before you open your mouth, examine your heart. Ask yourself, what am I trying to create with my words? Connection or control, understanding or dominance, truth or validation? Because communication isn't just what you say, it's what you mean behind what you say. To communicate like a leader, you must first understand that every interaction is an opportunity to build trust. People don't remember everything you say, they always remember how you made them feel. If you make them feel valued, they'll open up. If you make them feel dismissed, they'll shut down. Words have energy. They can either build bridges or burn them. Leaders who communicate effectively choose their words intentionally. They don't speak to show authority. They speak to create clarity. They know that power without empathy becomes manipulation, but empathy with power becomes influence. Every sentence is an instrument. Pause is a moment of connection, and every silence is an opportunity to listen deeper. Leadership is not about talking louder, about speaking wiser. When you speak, be clear, not clever. Too often people try to sound intelligent rather than being understood. Clarity is the true sign of mastery. A leader who can explain complex ideas in simple language demonstrates understanding, not just information. Simplicity invites trust. Confusion creates distance. When your message is clear, your team knows where they're headed, your audience knows what you stand for, and your vision becomes contagious. Clarity also shows respect. It tells others you value their time, attention, intelligence. Every time you communicate clearly, you reinforce your credibility. People will follow a leader who is consistent, transparent, articulate more readily than one who is ambiguous, erratic, or unclear. Listening is the hidden half of powerful communication. Most people listen to reply. Great leaders listen to understand. They pay attention not only to words but to tone, pauses, and what's left unsaid. Listening is how you earn emotional intelligence. It teaches you how others think, feel, and interpret the world. When you truly listen, you make people feel significant. And when people feel significant, they give their best selves to your cause. Listening is an act of humility. It tells others, you matter. It disarms defensiveness and turns confrontation into collaboration. The most influential communicators speak less and listen more, because in listening, they gather insight, and insight is the root of influence. Body language also communicates volumes before your words ever do. The way you carry yourself, the openness of your posture, the steadiness of your gaze, the warmth of your smile, all tell a story about your confidence and sincerity. People can sense authenticity instantly, feel it in your presence before they hear it in your words. A calm tone conveys control. A firm handshake conveys certainty. Relaxed demeanor communicates strength without arrogance. Remember, your body doesn't just reflect your emotions, it amplifies them. Stand tall, breathe deeply, and let your presence speak before your mouth does. Nonverbal communication often determines whether your verbal message lands or gets lost. Is the soul of communication. Facts inform, but feelings inspire. You can present logic all day long, but people are moved to act by emotion. Great communicators weave stories into their speech, because stories touch the heart and stay in the mind. When you tell a story, you invite others to see through your eyes, to walk in your shoes, to feel what you felt. Storytelling gives meaning to information. A good leader doesn't just present numbers. They paint a vision of what those numbers mean for real people, real change, real progress. Story makes the mission human, and humanity is what keeps communication alive. However, communication isn't just about inspiring others, it's also about managing conflict. Leaders who fear difficult conversations lose trust, while those who master them gain respect. When tension arises, approach it with calmness, not combat. A leader who can address disagreement without defensiveness demonstrates maturity. Communication in conflict is not about winning the argument. It's about preserving the relationship while solving the problem. Speak with respect even when you're firm. Statements instead of you, accusations, Focus on behavior, not identity. Say, when this happens, it affects the team, instead of, you always mess things up. That small shift transforms confrontation into collaboration. Another mark of powerful communication is authenticity. People can sense when you're performing instead of being real. Authentic communication doesn't require perfection. It requires presence. It's about being honest, transparent, and vulnerable when necessary. Leaders who admit they don't have all the answers gain credibility, because honesty builds trust. Pretending to be invincible creates distance. Showing humanity creates connection. People follow leaders who are relatable, not unreachable. When you communicate from the heart, your message becomes magnetic because authenticity resonates at a frequency everyone can feel. Communication also extends beyond words. It's in your timing, tone, and delivery. The same message can inspire or offend depending on how and when you say it. Wisdom lies in knowing not just what to say, but when to say it. Some moments call for firmness, others call for gentleness. Emotional intelligence guides you in reading the room, sensing the energy, and adjusting your tone accordingly. Speak with passion, but never aggression. Use pauses intentionally. They give your audience time to absorb your message and give your words weight. Silence, when used well, is as powerful as speech. To communicate like a leader, you must also learn to adapt your message to your audience. The best communicators are not rigid. They are versatile. They can speak to a boardroom and a classroom with equal ease, because they understand that influence depends on empathy. Meet people where they are, not where they wish they'd be. Adapting doesn't mean losing authenticity. It means honoring context. It means knowing that a great communicator doesn't speak for themselves, they speak for understanding. Another secret to influential communication is intention. Every word should serve a purpose. Ask yourself before you speak, what result am I hoping to create? I want to motivate, clarify, comfort, or challenge. When your intention is clear, your message naturally aligns with your tone and delivery. Communication without intention is noise. Communication with intention is power. Feedback is also a vital part of leadership communication. A good communicator gives feedback that empowers, not embarrasses. They balance honesty with empathy, challenge with encouragement. They know that people grow not from criticism, but from clarity and care. Likewise, great leaders invite feedback on themselves. They don't just speak. They ask, how did that come across? How can I improve? Openness to feedback strengthens your credibility and models humility for others. At its highest level, communication is service, using your voice not to dominate but to uplift. The purpose of speaking like a leader is not to show authority. It's to awaken it in others. Every word you say has the potential to spark change, heal wounds, or open minds. When you communicate with integrity, consistency, and heart, your words become instruments of transformation. You stop speaking for attention and start speaking for impact. Ultimately, communication is the art of energy exchange. It's not just about what you give, it's about what others receive. Every conversation leaves an imprint. When you walk away from a discussion, ask yourself, did I leave that person feeling heavier or lighter? Did I add clarity or confusion? Did I make them feel seen or ignored? The answers to those questions will reveal the quality of your communication. Leadership is not measured by how much you talk, but by how much your words move others towards something meaningful. Speak to uplift. Listen to understand. Lead with words that heal, not harm. Because in the end, communication is not only how leaders lead, it's how they leave a legacy. To speak like a leader, you must first learn to listen, Truly listen, not just with your ears, but with your eyes, your heart, and your full presence. Most people think communication begins with speaking, but real communication begins with listening. Listening is the foundation of connection, bridge that transforms conversation into understanding and understanding into influence. When you listen deeply, people the rare gift of feeling seen and heard in a world that is constantly shouting over itself. True listening is an act of respect. It's saying, your voice matters enough for me to quiet mine. And in that quiet, relationships deepen, trust is built, and leadership begins. Leadership without listening is like steering a ship without a compass. You may be moving, but you're not guiding. Great communicators are great listeners, because they understand that influence is not about dominating a dialogue, about creating space for others to share what's real for them. Listening requires humility, because to truly listen, you must be willing to be changed by what you hear. Listening is not a passive act. It's a form of leadership in itself. It takes strength to silence the inner chatter that wants to interrupt, advise, or judge. When someone speaks to you, you are already forming your response. You are not listening. You are waiting. But when you choose to be fully present, you shift the energy of the interaction. People can sense when you're genuinely tuned in. Your eyes stay steady, your body leans forward slightly, face softens with interest. In that space, walls come down. People open up. They trust you not because you said the right thing, but because you gave them the right feeling safety. Listening communicates safety, and safety breeds honesty. When people feel safe enough to be honest, they reveal truths that can transform relationships, organizations, and even your own perspective. The art of listening isn't just hearing words. It's decoding meaning. Often, what's spoken isn't the full story. The real message hides in tone, pauses, and expressions. A leader who listens beyond the surface can hear frustration behind silence, fear behind anger, or sadness behind sarcasm. They don't just listen for information, they listen for emotion. That's emotional intelligence in motion, the ability to notice what's not being said and to respond with empathy rather than ego. Sometimes, don't need advice. They need acknowledgement. They don't need you to fix their problem. They need to feel you understand their pain. When you can offer that, you create a connection that no speech, no argument, no strategy can replace. In leadership, listening also helps you make better decisions. When you listen well, you gather diverse perspectives. You learn how your choices affect others, and you discover insights that may never surface if you only rely on your own view. Leaders who don't listen become isolated. They start making decisions in an echo chamber, surrounded by voices that only agree with them. But leaders who listen create cultures of collaboration. They invite dialogue, feedback, and ideas, knowing that collective intelligence always outperforms individual ego. The greatest leaders aren't the ones with all the answers, they're the ones who know how to ask the right questions, and then stay silent long enough to truly hear the answers. Listening also requires patience. Our fast-paced world, silence feels uncomfortable, but silence is sacred space. When you allow silence in a conversation, it gives people time to think, to process, to gather courage to express something deeper. Too many leaders rush to fill silence, afraid it signals awkwardness or loss of control. But wise leaders know that silence invites authenticity. When you pause instead of pouncing on every opening to speak, you tell the other person, "I'm not here to dominate you, I'm here to understand you." And that changes everything. Silence isn't emptiness. It's invitation. It says, "Go on, I'm listening." Listening with empathy doesn't mean agreeing with everything you hear. It means understanding why the person feels the way they do. Empathy is perspective taking, not people-pleasing. It's about momentarily stepping out of your own story and into someone else's, so you can see the world through their eyes. It's one of the most powerful leadership tools you can develop because it allows you to respond rather than react. Reaction is impulsive, response is intentional. When you listen empathetically, you gain insight into what motivates others, their fears, dreams, and values, and that understanding gives you the ability to communicate in a way that resonates deeply rather than superficially. To become a great listener, you must also learn to manage your own emotions while others speak. Sometimes people will say things that trigger you, challenge your beliefs, criticize your actions. The untrained mind rushes to defend, justify, or argue. But the wise communicator breathes, stays open, asks for clarity instead of control. They say, "Tell me more." Not, "You're wrong." Because when you defend, the other person closes. When you inquire, they expand. Listening through conflict is one of the most advanced skills in communication, and it requires self-control and humility, valuing understanding more than being right. Listening is also how leaders inspire loyalty. When you take the time to hear your team, your family, or your audience, you show them they matter beyond their performance. You humanize the relationship. People who feel heard give more effort, more trust, and more creativity. They go from working for you to working with you. Listening fuels motivation because it validates worth, and validation is oxygen for the human spirit. A leader who listens well doesn't need to constantly demand results. They naturally inspire them. One of the most common reasons communication fails is assumption. We assume we already know what the other person means. We assume our interpretation is correct. But assumption kills connection. Every misunderstanding begins with the illusion of understanding. Cure is curiosity. Curiosity is the companion of listening. It keeps your mind open and your ego small. Instead of saying, "I know what you mean," ask, "Can you tell me more about that?" Instead of assuming, "They're being difficult," ask, "What might be driving this reaction?" Curiosity turns communication from a battle into a bridge. Another layer of listening is self-listening. The ability to hear your own thoughts, feelings, and inner wisdom amidst the noise of life. The way you listen to others often mirrors how you listen to yourself. If you constantly dismiss your own emotions, you'll likely dismiss others. Ignore your own needs, you'll fail to notice theirs. Listening to yourself is not selfish, it's self-awareness. It helps you approach others from a place of wholeness instead of projection. When you can sit quietly with your own thoughts and feelings, become more grounded, more compassionate, and more present. Presence is the greatest gift a listener can give. In the digital age, where everyone is talking but few are truly connecting, listening has become a superpower. Most people scroll, react, or perform instead of pausing to understand. A leader who can listen amidst the noise stands out. Their calm becomes contagious. Their attention becomes priceless. Listening, in a world addicted to noise, is a radical act of leadership. It says, "I value depth over distraction." And that kind of focus not only enhances communication, it transforms culture. Listening also enhances your speaking. The more deeply you listen, the more powerfully you speak. You begin to use words that resonate because you understand what people need to hear, start to anticipate concerns, frame ideas in relatable language, and address unspoken fears. Listening fine-tunes your intuition, making your communication more authentic and impactful. Great speakers are great listeners first. They know that inspiration begins with insight. Insight comes only from listening. Ultimately, listening is love in action. It's the decision to put your ego aside for a moment and make space for another person's truth. It's not always easy. It requires patience, vulnerability, and discipline. But the return is immeasurable. You'll gain wisdom, deepen relationships, and cultivate influence that lasts. People may forget your words, but they will never forget how deeply you listened. Listening builds trust. Trust builds influence, and influence builds legacy. If you want to speak like a leader, learn to listen like one first. Listen not to reply, but to relate. Listen not to win, but to understand. Because the greatest leaders aren't those who speak the most. They're those who listen the best. Confidence is not the absence of fear, it is the mastery of it. To communicate like a leader, you must first cultivate an unshakable belief in your own voice. Confidence is the invisible energy that amplifies your words, the inner conviction that gives your message weight and presence. Without confidence, the most brilliant ideas fall flat. With confidence, even simple words can move mountains. But confidence isn't something you're born with. It's something you build, layer by layer, through consistent action, honest reflection, relentless self-belief. True confidence is quiet. It doesn't shout or boast. It doesn't need validation to exist. It stands steady in both praise and criticism because it is rooted not in ego, but in self-awareness. A confident communicator doesn't speak to impress. They speak to express, to connect, and to serve. That's the secret. Confidence isn't about being perfect. It's about being authentic enough to show up as you are, and powerful enough to stand behind your message without apology. The journey to confidence begins in the mind. Every word you speak outwardly is a reflection of the dialogue happening inside your head. Inner voice constantly whispers doubt. I'm not good enough. What if I fail? Then your external communication will mirror that insecurity. If you transform yourself, talk into something empowering. I can handle this. I have something valuable to say. I am learning and improving every day. Then your voice gains authority and warmth. The most influential leaders are not those who have silenced fear, but those who have learned to talk back to it with kindness and courage. Positive self-talk is like fuel for the soul. It strengthens your self-image, which in turn shapes how others perceive you. When you treat yourself with respect, the world takes notice. When you speak to yourself with belief, your confidence becomes contagious. People mistake arrogance for confidence, but they are worlds apart. Arrogance seeks to dominate, while confidence seeks to inspire. Arrogance says, I'm better than you, while confidence says, I believe in myself, and I believe in you too. People are drawn to confident leaders, not because they know everything, but because they radiate certainty in uncertainty. Confidence makes people feel safe. It creates stability in chaos. When you walk into a room with calm assurance, others feel it immediately. Your energy speaks before your mouth does. That's why confident communication is as much about body language as it is about words. The way you stand, the steadiness of your gaze, the tone of your voice, the rhythm of your breathing, all these communicate messages beyond speech. Body says, I belong here. People will believe it before you even speak. Developing that level of confidence requires practice. More importantly, it requires self-acceptance. You can't project what you secretly reject. If you doubt your worth or constantly compare yourself to others, Your communication will always carry a subtle vibration of insecurity. To speak like a leader, you must make peace with your imperfections. Confidence grows when you stop trying to be flawless and start focusing on being fearless. The truth is, every leader you admire once struggled with doubt. The difference is, they chose to act anyway. Courage is confidence in motion. It's saying, I may not have all the answers, but I trust myself to figure it out. That mindset is magnetic because it's real. People don't follow perfect leaders, they follow human ones who lead with both strength and sincerity. To build confidence, repetition is your greatest ally. Time you practice speaking, whether in a meeting, on stage, or in conversation, you reinforce the neural pathways that make confident communication feel natural. The more you speak, the more you desensitize yourself to fear. It's not about eliminating nervousness, it's about learning to perform with it. The body interprets nervous energy and excitement the same way. It's your interpretation that makes the difference. So instead of saying, I'm nervous, tell yourself, I'm excited. That small shift rewires your physiology and transforms anxiety into energy. The most seasoned speakers still feel their heart race before stepping up to speak. But they've learned to harness that energy instead of resisting it. That's what confidence looks like in action, channeling fear into fuel. Confidence also comes from preparation. When you know your material, when you've rehearsed your ideas, when you've thought through the possible questions or challenges, you walk in with certainty. Preparation creates predictability, and predictability calms fear. But preparation alone isn't enough. Flexibility completes the picture. Confidence means being ready for the unexpected. It's the ability to adapt gracefully when things go off script. Technology fails, audiences react differently than expected, or words slip. But a confident communicator stays centered. They smile, they breathe, they pivot. Because they know confidence doesn't mean perfection, it means resilience. You don't have to get it right every time, just have to recover quickly and stay authentic. A crucial part of confidence is owning your voice. Literally and figuratively, your voice is an instrument of influence. The more you understand it, the more powerfully you can use it. Many people underestimate the power of tone, pacing, pause. The best communicators use their voice like music, sometimes soft and slow to draw people in, sometimes firm and deliberate to command attention. They use silence as punctuation, allowing their words to breathe. Confidence in speaking is not about filling every second with sound. It's about knowing when to let your message land. When you pause after a key point, you give your audience space to feel your words. That's where impact happens. Confidence also grows through connection. When you focus on yourself, how you look, how you sound, what others think, you create anxiety. But when you focus on your audience, what they need, how you can help, what message they must hear, you create flow. Consciousness fades when you shift from performance to purpose. Every great communicator serves their audience first. They ask, how can my words uplift, educate, or empower someone today? That intention automatically breeds confidence because it takes the spotlight off your fear and shines it on your mission. When your purpose is bigger than your insecurity, your confidence becomes unstoppable. Feedback is another powerful builder of confidence, if you learn to receive it wisely. Many people fear feedback because they see it as judgment, but feedback is information, not identity. It's a mirror showing you where to improve, not a verdict on your worth. Confident communicators seek feedback actively because they know growth and mastery are lifelong pursuits. They don't crumble under criticism, they analyze it. They take what's useful, discard what's not, and keep evolving. Piece of feedback you apply becomes another brick in your foundation of confidence. Confidence is also about consistency. It's not something you turn on when needed. It's a way of being. You can't fake real confidence. It's built through alignment between what you think. When your words match your actions, when your actions reflect your values, you develop self-trust. And self-trust is the root of confidence. When you can trust yourself to follow through, to stay grounded under pressure, to speak truth even when it's uncomfortable, you radiate quiet strength. That strength doesn't need validation or applause. It exists because you've proven to yourself, over and over again, that you can rely on you. In the end, confidence is a choice you make every day. To believe in yourself even when results aren't visible, to speak even when your voice shakes, stand tall even when doubt whispers. It's built in moments of discomfort, not comfort. Every challenge, every setback, failure, is an opportunity to reinforce your confidence muscle. The more you embrace those moments instead of avoiding them, the more unstoppable you become. Confidence is cumulative. It grows through courageous repetition. To communicate like a leader, remember this truth. Don't follow perfect communicators. They follow confident ones who speak from the heart, who listen deeply, who believe in what they say and embody what they teach. Confidence isn't about the loudest voice in the room. It's about the most grounded one. Your full attention. It's not about knowing everything. It's about being real enough to admit when you don't, and brave enough to keep learning. Speak your truth with humility, act with courage, and let your confidence shine not as a mask, but as a mirror of your authentic self. Because when you truly believe in your voice, the world will begin to believe in it too. Every great communicator understands that words are powerful, but energy is magnetic. You can rehearse your speech, refine your vocabulary, and polish your delivery. But if your energy doesn't align with your message, your words will fall flat. Energy is the invisible force that carries your communication beyond language. It's what people feel even when you're silent. The way you enter a room, the way you hold your posture, the way you look at someone when you speak. All of it transmits energy. Leadership communication, therefore, is not just about what you say. It's about the vibration you bring into every interaction. When your words and energy are congruent, your message lands with undeniable authenticity. When they're misaligned, people sense it immediately. Probably met someone whose words were polite, but whose energy screamed irritation. Or someone who said they were confident, but whose presence radiated insecurity. Energy doesn't lie. And because people feel before they think, your energy speaks louder than your sentences. That's why mastering communication begins with mastering your inner state. Your thoughts, emotions, and intentions. Before you ever open your mouth, the energy you project comes from your mindset. If you approach communication with anxiety, defensiveness, or the desire to prove something, energy will reflect that tension. But if you come from a mindset of service, curiosity, and connection, your energy becomes magnetic. People don't want to be impressed, they want to be inspired. They don't want to be talked at, they want to be felt. The energy of authenticity has a unique power. It builds instant trust. When people feel your sincerity, they lower their guard. They sense that you're not performing, you're connecting. That's the difference between a speaker who manipulates and a leader who motivates. The leader's energy says, "I'm here with you," not, "I'm above you." To cultivate that energy, you must anchor yourself in purpose before every conversation or presentation. Ask yourself, why am I speaking? What do I want this person to feel, think, as a result of our exchange? When your purpose is clear, your energy becomes intentional. Another key to mastering energetic communication is emotional regulation. Emotions are contagious. Your calmness can soothe others just as easily as your frustration can agitate them. A leader who reacts impulsively creates chaos, but one who responds consciously creates clarity. Before speaking, check in with your emotional state. If you're angry, breathe. If you're anxious, ground yourself. Your energy determines the emotional temperature of the room. When you communicate from balance, you create balance. One of the greatest forms of leadership is energetic stability, the ability to stay composed under pressure. People look to leaders not just for direction, for emotional cues. If you panic, they panic. If you stay centered, they feel safe. Energy management, therefore, is leadership in motion. Your physical energy also shapes your communication. The mind and body are intertwined. How you move affects how you feel affects how you speak. Stand tall, and your brain interprets confidence. Slouch, and your body tells your mind you're small. Movement, breath, and presence all contribute to the energy you radiate. Before you speak, take a moment to align your posture. Take a deep breath. Imagine your energy expanding outward. Not in a forceful way, but in an inviting one. Visualize yourself grounded like a tree, rooted yet open. This simple shift can transform your presence. When your body supports your message, people feel a natural coherence that commands respect. Energy of your words also matters. Every word carries emotional weight. Some elevate, some drain. Leaders who speak with uplifting, empowering language create a ripple of positivity that moves through teams and communities. Contrast that with leaders who communicate through fear, criticism, or cynicism. Their words may produce short-term compliance, but never long-term loyalty. The energy of your language determines the energy of your relationships. Choose words that heal, not harm. I can't, with, I'll find a way. Replace, this is a problem, with, this is an opportunity. Language doesn't just describe reality, it creates it. When you infuse your language with optimism and possibility, you raise the emotional vibration of everyone around you. Listening, too, is an energetic act. When you listen without distraction, you project respect. When you truly hear someone, you give them permission to be seen. People can feel when you're listening with your full presence versus when you're mentally elsewhere. Your energy either invites openness or shuts it down. The most magnetic communicators aren't always the ones who talk the most. They're the ones whose energy makes others feel significant. This is what makes certain leaders unforgettable. People don't remember every word they said, but they never forget how they felt in their presence. Energy alignment also means being congruent, making sure your tone, expressions, and gestures support your message. If you say, I'm excited to be here, but your voice sounds flat and your eyes wander, people won't believe you. But if your tone is alive, your gestures natural, eyes engaged, your message becomes believable. Congruence builds credibility because it signals integrity. Incongruence, on the other hand, breeds mistrust. Humans are wired to detect inconsistencies between words and energy. It's a survival mechanism. That's why authenticity is your most powerful communication tool. It aligns your inner truth with your outer expression. Your environment also interacts with your energy. Surround yourself with negativity, and it will seep into your communication. Spend time around inspired, growth-oriented people, and your energy will elevate. Energy is transferable, that's why it's crucial to guard your mental and emotional space. Important conversations or presentations, protect your focus. Avoid gossip, complaints, or distractions that deplete your vibration. Every communication as the best version of yourself, not as a reaction to others. Your energy sets the tone, others will match it. Confidence amplifies your energy, but humility refines it. There's a distinct difference between radiating strength and radiating superiority. First attracts, the second repels. A true leader's energy says, "I believe in myself," not, "I'm better than you." It's grounded, generous, steady. It doesn't need to dominate the room to influence it. Think of the quiet power of someone whose presence alone commands attention. Not through volume, but through conviction. That's the kind of energy that shapes culture and inspires trust. Another dimension of energetic communication is intention. Every word you speak carries the intention behind it. You can say the same sentence with different intentions and get completely different outcomes. For example, "We need to talk" can sound threatening, neutral, or compassionate depending on your energetic intention. That's why clarity of purpose is so vital. Before engaging with anyone, take a moment to set your intention. May my words uplift. May my tone calm. May my message inspire. When your intention is pure, your energy naturally aligns with integrity. People feel it at a subconscious level. Energy alignment also involves authenticity of emotion. Too many people suppress their feelings in the name of professionalism or control, but repressed emotions leak out as tension, sarcasm, or detachment. The goal isn't to hide your emotions, it's to channel them consciously. Passion, for example, can electrify your speech when expressed with awareness. When harnessed wisely, can become assertiveness. Sadness, when acknowledged, can foster empathy. The key is to own your emotions, not be owned by them. Emotional transparency humanizes you, and that humanity deepens connection. Your energy also communicates through silence. Silence is not empty, it's full of presence. Sometimes the most powerful thing a leader can do is pause and let energy speak. When you pause, you invite reflection. When you hold space without rushing to fill it, you create room for truth to emerge. Silence communicates patience, confidence, and emotional maturity. It tells others that you are comfortable enough in your energy to let stillness do the talking. Energy is also cyclical. What you give out comes back to you amplified. Speak negativity often enough, and it will echo through your life. Speak possibility, and doors begin to open. The energy you project shapes your experiences, your relationships, and your opportunities. That's why self-care isn't selfish. It's strategic. You can't pour from an empty cup, and you can't communicate with clarity if your energy is drained. Nourish your body, quiet your mind, protect your peace. The more balanced your inner world, the more powerful your outer expression. Ultimately, communicating like a leader is about energetic congruence, aligning thought, emotion, and action into one coherent vibration. People may forget your exact phrasing, but they'll never forget your frequency. When your energy says, "I'm here with purpose, integrity, and love," every word becomes a bridge, every interaction a transformation. That's the power of energetic communication. It turns ordinary speech into leadership. You don't just speak, you shift rooms. You don't just deliver messages, you deliver meaning. And when your energy is rooted in authenticity and guided by intention, you don't just talk like a leader. You become one. Speak like a leader. You must learn the art of storytelling. Because facts inform, but stories transform. Every powerful communicator throughout history understood that data may appeal to the mind, but stories capture the heart. Don't remember lists, statistics, or complex jargon. They remember feelings, images, and lessons wrapped in human experience. Storytelling bridges logic and emotion, creating meaning from information and connection from distance. It is the thread that ties knowledge to understanding. When you tell a story well, you don't just transfer ideas. You transfer energy, emotion, and imagination. Storytelling allows you to lead people not by instruction, but by inspiration. A story can take your audience on a journey where they see themselves in your words and begin to believe that change, growth, or courage is possible for them too. And that is the essence of leadership communication. To move others from awareness to action through authenticity and emotional resonance. But great storytelling isn't about exaggeration or performance. It's about truth. Authentic stories have power because they reveal the storyteller's humanity. Vulnerability doesn't weaken your message. It strengthens it. When you share your struggles, your doubts, your lessons learned through failure, you create connection through honesty. People don't trust perfect leaders, relatable ones. A story about how you stumbled, got back up, and grew stronger tells your audience more about your character than any title or achievement ever could. Vulnerability transforms communication into communion. It invites others to see that strength and struggle can coexist. It gives them permission to be imperfect too, and that's where genuine trust is born. The key to mastering storytelling lies in structure. Great story, whether in a book, speech, or conversation, follows a natural rhythm. The setup, the struggle, and the solution. First, you paint the scene where you were, what you wanted, what was at stake. Then, you reveal the challenge, the conflict that tested you, the obstacle that forced you to change. Finally, you deliver the resolution, the breakthrough, the insight, the transformation. This simple three-part flow mirrors the human journey, which is why it resonates universally. It's not about dramatizing your life, about illuminating the lessons within it. A leader uses stories not for self-promotion, but for service. To make complex truths accessible, make abstract ideas tangible, and to make values visible through lived experience. Emotion is the heartbeat of every story. Logic makes people think, emotion makes them act. When you tell a story with emotional clarity, you bypass resistance and reach the soul. Your audience may not remember your exact words, but they'll remember how your story made them feel. Hopeful, courageous, inspired. To do this, you must be willing to relive the emotion as you tell it. If you tell a story about a difficult time, don't rush through it. Pause, breathe, and let your audience feel the weight of that moment with you. If you tell a story about triumph, let your eyes and tone carry the joy of that victory. Emotion is contagious. It transfers through tone, body language, and presence. When you feel your story, your audience does too. But storytelling is not just about your past, it's also about vision. Great leaders tell future stories, stories that paint a vivid picture of what could be. They use narrative to pull people toward a shared dream. When you communicate a vision through story, you activate imagination, which is more powerful than instruction. Saying, "We need to improve teamwork," is forgettable. But describing a story of a moment when unity changed everything, that sticks. Humans are wired for narrative. Our brains release dopamine when we hear stories that align with our values. That's why stories motivate behavior far more effectively than directives. A vision story helps people see the future before it exists, and that sight becomes fuel for action. Listening also plays a vital role in storytelling. Tell stories that move people, you must first listen to theirs. Every person, every team, every culture carries its own stories of hope, fear, and identity. When you understand those narratives, you can weave your message in a way that feels familiar, not foreign. Leadership is not about imposing your story, it's about integrating it with the collective story of those you serve. When people feel that your story includes them, they invest emotionally. They no longer see you as just a speaker. They see you as a mirror. Mirrors move people far deeper than megaphones ever could. A story's power also depends on its simplicity. The best stories are not cluttered with unnecessary detail, they're distilled to their essence. Simplicity creates clarity, and clarity creates impact. Avoid the temptation to sound impressive. Focus instead on being expressive. Use sensory language that paints pictures in the listener's mind, saying, "It was a difficult time." Say, "I remember staring at my ceiling at 2 a.m., wondering if I'd ever feel strong again." The more specific your imagery, the more universal your story becomes, because emotion lives in the details. Paradoxically, when you make a story personal, it becomes universal, because everyone has felt fear, love, loss, and triumph in their own way. Storytelling also requires timing. The right story told at the wrong moment loses its power. The right story at the right time can shift an entire room's energy. A good storyteller reads the room, feels its mood, senses its needs, chooses stories accordingly. Sometimes your audience needs hope, other times they need humility or humor. A story can soften tension in a conflict, reignite focus in fatigue, or bring unity during uncertainty. Leaders who can deploy stories strategically become architects of emotion. They can guide collective energy toward purpose. To become a master storyteller, the world with curiosity. Every day offers stories if you pay attention. A conversation with a stranger, a challenge at work, a mistake you made, a lesson you learned, all are raw material. Reflect daily and capture your insights. Over time, build a reservoir of real experiences you can draw from to teach, inspire, or comfort others. The more stories you collect, the more versatile and authentic your communication becomes. Leadership is not about having the most stories. It's about having the most meaningful ones. Another often overlooked aspect of storytelling is listening to your own inner story. The narrative you tell yourself about who you are shapes how you communicate with the world. Internal story is one of limitation. I'm not ready. I'm not good enough. That insecurity will echo in your words. If your inner story is one of purpose, I'm growing, I'm learning, I have something valuable to share, your energy becomes empowering. Leaders rewrite their inner stories to rewrite their external impact. Every time you choose courage over fear, you change the tone of your story. Time you turn a setback into a lesson, you shift from victim to visionary. The more empowering your inner narrative, the more compelling your outer communication. Great storytellers also understand that silence is part of the story. A pause is not an absence of sound, it's a presence of meaning. The moments of stillness between words allow emotion to settle and reflection to take root. Think of silence as punctuation for the soul. When you pause intentionally, your story breathes. It gives space for your audience to feel what you just said. Most inexperienced speakers rush their stories, afraid of losing attention. But paradoxically, slowing down draws attention in. A well-timed pause says, "This matters," and the audience listens deeper. Storytelling is also about legacy. Every time you tell a story, you're not just sharing a moment, you're shaping memory. Words fade, but stories endure. The stories you tell about your company, your family, your struggles, and your triumphs become part of your collective identity. That's why leaders must tell stories that build, not break. Tell stories that remind people of their strength, of what's possible, of why their work and existence matter. Words can destroy confidence, but stories can resurrect it. Leadership storytelling is sacred work. It's planting seeds of belief in others through the soil of your own experience. The end, storytelling is not just a communication skill, it's a leadership philosophy. To lead is to tell a better story about the future, to remind people of who they are and what they're capable of becoming. When you master storytelling, no longer rely on persuasion, you inspire transformation. Your words become catalysts for courage. Truth becomes the mirror through which others find theirs. So speak your stories not to impress, but to impact. Share your scars, just your successes. Tell stories that breathe life into others. Because when you tell stories that touch hearts, you don't just speak like a leader. You awaken leadership in everyone who listens. To communicate like a leader, you must master the art of emotional intelligence, the ability to understand, manage, and express emotions in ways that build trust, inspire respect, strengthen human connection. Emotional intelligence, often called EQ, is what separates great communicators from average ones. It's not just about knowing what to say, but how, when, and why to say it. It's the awareness that every word you speak carries emotional weight, and that how you make people feel is often more memorable than what you make them think. Logic may persuade, but emotion moves people to action. Emotional intelligence is, at its core, the discipline of awareness. Awareness of self, awareness of others, and awareness of the invisible emotional climate in every interaction. When you walk into a room, you bring your emotions with you, and they begin speaking before your words do. A leader with high emotional intelligence walks in grounded, centered, and intentional, able to read the energy of others and respond with clarity rather than reactivity. This is not manipulation. It's mastery. It's the difference between reacting impulsively and responding wisely. The foundation of emotional intelligence is self-awareness. You cannot lead others until you can lead yourself, and you cannot lead yourself without understanding your own emotions. Self-awareness means noticing what you feel in real time and understanding where it comes from. The skill of naming your emotions instead of being consumed by them. Saying, "I feel anxious," instead of unconsciously acting from anxiety. The moment you name an emotion, you gain power over it, because awareness creates space for choice. Without awareness, you are ruled by emotional autopilot, reacting out of habit rather than intention. A leader who is unaware of their emotions will communicate through them unknowingly. Frustration becomes sharp words, insecurity becomes arrogance, becomes defensiveness. But a self-aware leader pauses, breathes, and asks, "What am I really feeling? What do I want to create in this moment?" That pause is power. That pause transforms chaos into consciousness. The second pillar of emotional intelligence is self-regulation. Once you understand your emotions, you must learn to manage them. This doesn't mean suppressing feelings, it means channeling them consciously. Anger, for example, inherently bad. It can be a catalyst for justice or assertiveness if guided with wisdom. Fear is not weakness. It's information, a signal pointing to growth. The goal isn't emotional control, it's emotional coherence. You become a master communicator when your emotions serve your values rather than sabotage them. Imagine being in a high-stakes meeting where someone challenges your idea publicly. Without self-regulation, your ego might rush to defend, attack, withdraw. With self-regulation, you stay calm, acknowledge their perspective, and respond thoughtfully. Calmness communicates strength far louder than defensiveness ever could. Emotional discipline earns respect because it demonstrates maturity. People trust leaders who can stay composed in storms, because their steadiness becomes a source of safety. Next comes empathy, the heart of emotional intelligence. Empathy is the ability to feel what others feel, step out of your own viewpoint and into theirs without judgment. It's not about agreeing, it's about understanding. When you communicate with empathy, you validate people's emotions, even if you can't change their circumstances. You make them feel seen. Empathy turns communication into connection, builds bridges where logic alone builds walls. When a team member struggles, an empathetic leader doesn't just offer solutions, they offer presence. They listen with patience, read between the words, and respond with compassion. In personal relationships, it deepens intimacy because it tells the other person, your feelings matter. In professional settings, it builds loyalty because people don't leave leaders who make them feel understood. The emotionally intelligent communicator knows that empathy doesn't weaken authority. It humanizes it. People follow those who care. Another crucial element of emotional intelligence is social awareness. The ability to read the emotional temperature of a group or situation. Every conversation has an emotional undercurrent. Sometimes it's tense, sometimes excited, sometimes resistant. Leaders who can sense these shifts can adapt their communication in real time. They can feel when to push and when to pause, when to inspire and when to empathize. This sensitivity is what makes their communication seem effortless. It's actually attunement. Full social awareness is what allows a leader to walk into a meeting and sense unspoken tension or disengagement and address it before it festers. What enables a speaker to adjust their tone based on the mood of the room. The emotionally unaware communicator, on the other hand, misses these cues, talking louder when the room needs quiet, or trying to inspire when people first need to be heard. The ability to sense and respond to emotional dynamics is what transforms communication from mechanical to magnetic. Emotional intelligence also requires authenticity. People can sense fake positivity or rehearsed empathy from a mile away. Your authenticity doesn't mean sharing everything you feel. It means aligning what you express with what you genuinely believe. When your words and emotions match, people feel your integrity. When they don't, people sense manipulation, even if they can't articulate it. The emotionally intelligent communicator knows that vulnerability and strength are not opposites. They are partners. I don't know. Or, I made a mistake. Doesn't weaken your credibility, it strengthens it. Authentic emotion builds trust faster than perfection ever could. Leaders who communicate authentically create cultures of openness, where others feel safe to do the same. One of the most powerful applications of emotional intelligence in communication is conflict resolution. Conflict is inevitable wherever humans interact, but emotional intelligence turns conflict into opportunity. When tensions rise, most people focus on being right instead of understanding. But an emotionally intelligent leader focuses on resolution over ego. They listen to what's being said beneath the surface, acknowledging emotions before tackling logic. Often, people don't want to win the argument. They just want their feelings to be recognized. By addressing emotion first, you open the door to reason. For example, saying, "I can see you're frustrated, and that makes sense," disarms defensiveness instantly. Empathy doesn't mean surrender, It means strategy. You calm the storm so truth can be heard. Communication grounded in emotional awareness doesn't avoid conflict. It transforms it. Emotional intelligence also plays a key role in motivation, both your own and others. Self-motivation driven by emotional awareness allows you to stay focused and inspired even when challenges arise. It's the ability to manage frustration, bounce back from setbacks, reframe obstacles as growth opportunities. Leaders with emotional intelligence don't depend on external validation to stay driven. They cultivate internal resilience. This inner strength radiates outward, inspiring others. When a leader speaks from emotional conviction, their words carry authenticity that no motivational technique can fake. Their passion becomes contagious because it's real. Strengthen emotional intelligence. Practice mindfulness. Mindfulness trains you to observe emotions without being ruled by them. It's the habit of checking in with yourself throughout the day. What am I feeling? What do I need? What energy am I bringing into this room? This simple self-inquiry increases emotional agility. Instead of being swept away by emotion, you learn to surf it. Mindfulness also deepens empathy by helping you stay present with others' emotions without absorbing them. You listen not to reply, understand. You pause before reacting. Over time, this awareness becomes second nature, and your communication becomes more intentional, compassionate, effective. Emotionally intelligent communication is also about boundaries. Compassion without boundaries leads to burnout. Understanding others doesn't mean absorbing their emotions as your own. The emotionally intelligent leader knows how to be empathetic without losing self-respect. Say no without guilt, and yes without resentment. They understand that emotional generosity requires emotional discipline. Setting boundaries doesn't close your heart, it protects it. In leadership, emotional intelligence creates culture. A leader's emotional tone becomes the emotional climate of the team. If you communicate with fear, you breed anxiety. If you communicate with trust, cultivate creativity. When people feel emotionally safe, they speak up, innovate, and engage. When they feel judged or dismissed, retreat into silence. Emotional intelligence, therefore, is not just a personal skill. It's an organizational advantage. It drives performance, retention, and resilience. Led by emotionally intelligent leaders consistently outperform those led by purely intellectual ones, because emotion fuels motivation. In essence, emotional intelligence is emotional leadership. It's the ability to balance heart and mind in every interaction, to choose understanding over reaction, guide emotions toward growth rather than chaos. It's knowing that behind every behavior lies a feeling, and behind every feeling lies a need. When you can see that clearly, communication stops being a battle of egos and becomes a dialogue of humanity. The more emotionally intelligent you become, the less you need to dominate conversations, because your presence itself communicates safety and wisdom. Emotional intelligence is not something you do, it's something you are. It's the calm in your voice when others panic, the empathy in your eyes when others despair, the strength in your silence when others shout. Mastering it will not only make you a better communicator, it will make you a better human being, because at its deepest level, emotional intelligence is love translated into leadership. To truly speak like a leader, you must master the art of listening, not passive hearing, but active, intentional, and empathetic listening that allows you to understand people beyond their words. Listening is the most underestimated communication skill in leadership, yet it is the foundation upon which trust, influence, and wisdom are built. Great communicators are not those who speak the most, but those who listen the best. When you listen deeply, you don't just gather information. You build connection. You communicate respect without saying a word. You make others feel valued, seen, and understood. And when people feel understood, they open up. They collaborate. They follow. Leadership is not about having the loudest voice in the room. It's about creating space for others' voices to be heard. Listening is not silence, it's strategy. It's how you gain insight into what motivates people, what worries them, what they need to perform at their best. Every word, tone, and pause tells a story if you are willing to hear it. Active listening begins with presence. In our hyper-distracted world, true presence is rare, and therefore powerful. When someone speaks to you, goal is not to prepare your reply, but to understand their reality. Most people listen to respond. Leaders listen to connect. This means putting away distractions, making eye contact, and giving your full attention to the person in front of you, as if they are the only person who exists in that moment. Presence says, "You matter." Presence builds psychological safety, the assurance that one's thoughts and feelings are welcome. When a leader gives undivided attention, it elevates the conversation from transactional to transformational. It transforms a routine exchange into a moment of meaning. Because communication is not just words, it's energy. Your attention is the highest form of respect you can give another person. True listening also requires curiosity. Curiosity turns communication into discovery. Instead of assuming you know what someone means, you explore. You ask open-ended questions like, "Can you tell me more about that?" Or, "How did that make you feel?" These questions open emotional doors that statements close. Curiosity replaces judgment with understanding. It transforms potential conflict into collaboration because curiosity disarms defensiveness. When people feel that your intention is to understand rather than criticize, they reveal truth rather than hide it. Leadership listening is therefore an act of humility. It acknowledges that others' perspectives matter, that wisdom can come from anywhere. Everyone has something valuable to teach. Listening is not just about words, it's about observing the unsaid. Body language, tone, pacing, energy often reveal more than sentences do. A team member might say, "Everything's fine," but their slumped posture or forced smile says otherwise. A colleague might nod in agreement but cross their arms defensively. Emotion leaks through behavior. Your tension and leaders who listen with their eyes and hearts as well as their ears can sense what others miss. This is called empathetic listening, the ability to hear beyond words into the emotional truth beneath them. It's sensing hesitation in a pause, appointment in a sigh, or hope in a softening voice. Empathetic listeners don't interrupt, fix, or judge. They create space for truth to surface naturally. They understand that silence is not emptiness. It's often where the real message lies. Listening as a leader also means suspending your ego. The greatest barrier to listening is the need to be right, to win, or to prove your intelligence. Driven communication is not dialogue, it's performance. When your mind is busy defending your viewpoint or preparing your counterargument, you're not truly listening. True listening requires surrender, the willingness to let go of your need to dominate and to instead prioritize understanding. Great leaders approach conversations with the mindset, "What can I learn here?" rather than, "How can I be right here?" This shift transforms communication from competition to collaboration. It builds bridges, not walls, and in those bridges, influence grows. Listening also has a transformative effect on decision-making. When you listen deeply to diverse perspectives, You expand your understanding and reduce blind spots. You begin to see issues from multiple angles, leading to wiser, more inclusive decisions. A leader who fails to listen often surrounds themselves with echoes of their own opinions, creating an illusion of certainty that eventually breeds disconnection and poor judgment. But a leader who listens to the quiet voices, the dissenters, cautious, the creative, builds clarity grounded in reality. Listening doesn't mean agreeing with everyone, means valuing everyone's input enough to consider it. Listening is how you turn collective intelligence into collective progress. Active listening also means listening for potential, not just problems. When you listen to people only when they're struggling, you limit their growth. When you listen to their ideas, their dreams, their aspirations, you ignite inspiration. People flourish where they feel heard. Leaders who listen for potential bring out greatness in others. They hear possibility where others hear noise. They notice small sparks and fan them into flames. This kind of listening requires belief. Belief that everyone has something within them worth developing. Listening becomes an act of empowerment. But listening is not always easy. It requires patience and emotional control. You may hear things you disagree with, feedback that stings, or truths that challenge your assumptions. The instinctive reaction is to defend or dismiss. But the disciplined choice is to stay open. Real listening sometimes means sitting in discomfort. Often sounds like criticism at first. But if you can quiet your ego and listen beyond the sting, you uncover wisdom that helps you evolve. The greatest leaders welcome feedback, not because it's pleasant, but because it's precious. Every piece of honest input is a mirror reflecting something you can refine. Listening is not weakness. It's refinement in motion. Listening also extends beyond people. It's about listening to moments, to your environment, and to yourself. Sometimes leadership requires listening to silence, intuition, or the subtle signs of burnout, tension, or disengagement before they erupt into problems. Listening is particularly powerful. It means being attuned to your emotions and energy. When you feel frustrated, do you know why? When you feel drained, pause to restore. Leaders who ignore their inner voice lose touch with themselves, and eventually with others. The more you listen inwardly, the more clarity you bring outwardly. Listening to yourself builds authenticity, because you can only communicate truthfully when you are in tune with your own truth. Listening is also an instrument of influence. When people feel heard, they are more open to hearing you. It's a reciprocal exchange of trust. If you want your message to land, first create space for others' messages to be heard. Listening softens resistance, builds rapport, and earns permission to speak truth. That's why the best communicators spend more time listening than speaking. They know influence is not imposed. It's invited. And the invitation begins with the question, what matters most to you? Listening gives you the emotional data to tailor your message effectively. Generic communication into personalized connection. In teams and organizations, a culture of listening transforms everything. Meetings become dialogues instead of monologues. Innovation flourishes because ideas are not dismissed prematurely. Conflicts dissolve faster because people feel safe expressing concerns. Engagement rises because employees feel their voices count. A listening culture is a learning culture. It signals humility and continuous growth. It says, we don't have all the answers, but we're willing to listen until we find them. Such cultures attract loyalty because they honor humanity. Listening also requires discernment, the wisdom to know what to absorb and what to release. Not every voice deserves equal weight. Every voice deserves respect. Emotional maturity in listening means distinguishing between constructive feedback and projection, between truth and noise. Discernment protects your peace without dulling your empathy. You learn to listen deeply without losing direction. Ultimately, listening is not a mechanical skill, it's a moral choice. It's choosing to value people's experiences as much as your own. It's saying, I am willing to slow down my pace to understand yours. That simple act can transform relationships, heal divisions, elevate communication to a spiritual act of respect. The world today is loud. Everyone is talking, few are listening. Leaders who choose to listen become beacons of calm in the chaos, channels of wisdom amid the noise. Quiet attention carries more influence than 1,000 loud words. So, to speak like a leader, learn first to listen like one. Listen to words, more importantly to meanings. Listen not to fix, but to feel. Listen to the emotions behind the sentences, the pauses between the breaths, and the stories hidden within the silences. Let your listening become so deep that people leave your presence not thinking, what a great speaker, but feeling, what a great listener. Because when people feel heard, they feel valued. And when they feel valued, they will follow trust and grow with you. Listening is not the absence of speaking. It is the presence of understanding. It is leadership in its purest, quietest, and most powerful form. To speak like a leader and connect with authenticity, you must master the power of body language, the silent orchestra that communicates your confidence, credibility, character before a single word leaves your lips. The truth is, people don't just listen with their ears. They listen with their eyes. Long before you utter your message, your posture, gestures, and expressions already tell a story. Leadership communication, therefore, is not only about what you say, but how your body supports it. Nonverbal communication can amplify your words or contradict them. Who speaks of optimism with a tense jaw or crossed arms sends mixed signals. But one who stands tall, open, and grounded speaks volumes of calm assurance even in silence. Your body is the instrument of your message. It either harmonizes or creates dissonance. The most influential communicators know this and align their physical presence with their emotional intent. Because when your body and words agree, your message becomes magnetic. Body language begins with posture. Your posture announces your presence before your words do. When you enter a room upright, shoulders back, chin level, and movement steady, you silently communicate confidence and readiness. Need to be tall to stand tall. Presence is an energy, not a measurement. Slouching or shrinking, on the other hand, signals insecurity or indifference. Great communicators occupy space without arrogance and without apology. Their posture says, I'm grounded, I'm present, and I belong here. The body follows the mind, but the mind also follows the body. When you adjust your posture, you adjust your psychology. Standing tall physically can trigger feelings of inner strength. Before important conversations, take a moment to breathe deeply, align your spine, and relax your shoulders. That small ritual prepares your mind to lead with calm authority. Next comes eye contact, the most powerful bridge between speaker and listener. Eyes are the windows of connection. They convey sincerity and confidence. Maintaining natural eye contact tells your audience, I see you, and invites trust. Avoiding it can signal fear, guilt, or disinterest, while overdoing it can feel intimidating. The balance lies in warmth and steadiness. Soft eyes that engage, not stare. When addressing a group, your gaze intentionally across different people to include everyone. When speaking one-on-one, 1. Focus your attention fully on the person in front of you. Makes them feel valued and respected. Eye contact is presence made visible. It turns your words into a dialogue instead of a monologue. Gestures also speak volumes. Every movement of your hands, arms and body either adds clarity or creates distraction. Open gestures, palms visible, relaxed, movements flowing, signal honesty and openness. Closed gestures, crossed arms, hidden hands, posture, signal defensiveness or discomfort. Leaders who gesture naturally while speaking appear more authentic and engaging, because their physicality mirrors their emotional energy. Gestures must be purposeful, not excessive. Animated movement can dilute your message, while rigid stillness can make you seem disconnected. The secret is congruence. Your gestures should follow your words like music follows rhythm. For instance, gesture outward to include others. When you say, "I learned," bring your hand to your chest. This synchronization makes your message more memorable because it engages both the visual and emotional centers of the brain. Facial expressions are the emotional punctuation of your message. Your face reflects your inner world, and audiences instinctively read it. A genuine smile conveys warmth and approachability, but an artificial one is transparent and erodes trust. Authentic expression is born from genuine emotion. Truly believe in what you're saying, your face will naturally communicate it. Neutrality, when overused, can create distance. Expressive authenticity builds connection. Your eyebrows, eyes, and mouth should move in harmony with your words. When discussing serious topics, let your face show empathy. When sharing success, let it glow with enthusiasm. People remember not just what you said, but how your expression made them feel. Your voice, though verbal, is also a crucial part of body language because it carries tone, rhythm, and emotion. A leader's voice should be flexible, calm yet commanding, expressive yet measured. Speaking too fast signals nervousness. Speaking too slow can suggest hesitation. Variety in tone captures attention. Monotony kills it. The emotionally intelligent communicator uses pauses strategically, letting silence emphasize meaning. A well-placed pause invites reflection, while continuous speech drowns impact. Lowering your pitch slightly can make your message sound more authoritative, while raising it slightly conveys openness and warmth. The voice is the music of leadership. It can soothe, inspire, or energize depending on how it's played. Proxemics, the science of space, is another subtle but powerful aspect of body language. The distance you maintain while communicating signals respect, comfort, or dominance. Standing too close can feel invasive. Standing too far can feel detached. Leaders intuitively calibrate distance based on context. Closer during moments of empathy. More space during moments of authority. Even the direction you face matters. Turning your body fully toward someone conveys engagement. Angling away suggests disinterest. Leaders who master spatial awareness make others feel both safe and respected in conversation. Mirroring is another powerful tool in nonverbal communication. When you subtly reflect someone's posture, gestures, or tone, creates subconscious rapport. People feel more comfortable around those who seem like them. However, mirroring must be natural and respectful. Mechanical mimicry, it's not about imitation, it's about emotional synchronization. When two people are aligned emotionally, their bodies often mirror each other automatically. Your full attention. Great communicators intentionally nurture this alignment by staying attuned to others' energy and matching their presence accordingly. Leaders must also understand the power of stillness. Movement attracts attention, but stillness commands it. A steady stance during key points gives weight to your message. In a world of constant motion and noise, stillness communicates authority, patience, control. It signals that you are centered within yourself and not easily shaken. Whether during a difficult conversation or a public speech, stillness draws people in. It creates gravity. Stillness says, I am comfortable here. I don't need to fill the space with nervous movement. It transforms silence into strength. Awareness is the foundation of mastering body language. You can only change what you notice. Many people are unaware of their nonverbal habits. Tapping feet, fidgeting, avoiding eye contact, shrinking under pressure. To grow, you must first observe. Record yourself speaking, or ask trusted friends for honest feedback. Observation is not vanity, it's refinement. Notice how your gestures, tone, and posture align, or don't, with your message. Awareness precedes adjustment. Once you become conscious of your physical presence, you can sculpt it with intention. Authenticity, however, remains the soul of body language. No matter how technically skilled you become, if your gestures lack sincerity, your audience will feel the disconnect. True leadership communication flows from alignment. Your thoughts, emotions, and actions in harmony. If you're pretending confidence, your body will betray anxiety. If you're pretending care, your eyes will reveal distance. Authenticity radiates naturally when your purpose is genuine. When your intention is to serve, empower, or uplift, your body becomes your ally, expressing sincerity without effort. Cultural awareness also matters. Body language is not universal. Gestures that signify confidence in one culture can appear aggressive in another. Leaders who operate globally must learn to adapt their nonverbal cues respectfully. For instance, direct eye contact may signal honesty in Western cultures but disrespect in some Eastern ones. Touching, hand gestures, and personal space norms vary widely. The emotionally intelligent communicator studies these nuances not to manipulate, but to honor diversity. Sensitivity builds connection across boundaries. Moreover, body language extends beyond formal communication. It influences your internal dialogue. The way you carry yourself affects how you feel about yourself. Power poses, steady breathing, open posture can physiologically reduce stress and increase confidence. This is known as the embodiment effect. Your body shapes your mind as much as your mind shapes your body. Leaders who carry themselves with calm strength train their nervous system to remain stable under pressure. Your body becomes a tool for emotional regulation. Stakes situations, presentations, negotiations, or conflicts. Your nonverbal cues can determine outcomes. Single gesture of openness can diffuse tension. A glance of empathy can restore trust. When emotions run high, words may fail. Body language continues to communicate. Maintaining relaxed shoulders, steady breathing, and an even tone keeps others grounded too. Emotional contagion is real. People subconsciously mirror the body language of those they follow. Your calmness becomes their calmness. Your confidence becomes their confidence. Mastering body language does not mean performing, it means aligning. It's not about learning tricks, but about embodying truth. When your presence matches your purpose, when your words and energy move in harmony, you no longer have to demand attention. It comes naturally. Leadership presence is not loud or forceful, it's felt. It's the quiet assurance in your stance, the authenticity in your eyes, and the consistency between what you say and how you show up. In the end, body language is the invisible script of leadership. It tells the world whether you believe in yourself, whether you respect others, whether you are grounded in authenticity. Every interaction becomes a performance of your values. Every gesture a reflection of your inner world. The goal is not perfection but congruence. When your body and message are aligned, you communicate without resistance. You inspire trust without trying. You lead without speaking. Because real leadership isn't about commanding attention, it's about embodying presence. Your body is your message, your presence is your persuasion, and your authenticity is your power. Speak through it wisely, for it speaks, even when you are silent. The final and perhaps most transformative element of speaking like a leader is mastering the mindset of growth and positive self-talk. Because how you speak to yourself determines how you speak to the world. Every word you tell yourself becomes the architecture of your inner reality, shaping your confidence, courage, and capacity to connect. If your inner dialogue is filled with doubt, fear, or criticism, no amount of external skill will make you a powerful communicator. The voice inside you will always overpower the voice you project. But when your self-talk is rooted in belief, encouragement, and self-respect, your communication carries an energy that cannot be faked. The tone of your inner conversation sets the tone of your leadership presence. You can't speak hope into others if you speak defeat into yourself. You can't inspire courage in others if you continually shame your own vulnerability. True communication mastery begins in the mind. It begins with the decision to speak to yourself with kindness, conviction, and vision. Positive self-talk is not naive optimism or pretending everything is fine. It's disciplined focus on truth and growth. It's the ability to replace self-sabotaging narratives with empowering ones. The inner critic will always whisper things like, "You're not ready," "You'll mess this up," or "You don't belong here." But a leader rewrites that script with, "I'm learning, I'm growing, I'm capable, I've overcome before, and I can again." Self-talk is mental rehearsal for performance. The more you feed your mind with belief, the more naturally your outer communication exudes confidence. The difference between those who freeze in fear and those who rise under pressure often lies in the quality of their internal dialogue. A mind filled with supportive language becomes a stronghold of courage. A mind filled with self-doubt becomes a prison of hesitation. Leader faces moments of uncertainty before a big speech, a crucial meeting, or a vulnerable conversation. In those moments, self-talk either becomes your weapon or your weakness. If you tell yourself, "I'm nervous, I'll fail," your body responds accordingly. Your voice trembles, your posture shrinks, your words stumble. But if you shift your language to, "I'm excited, I'm prepared, I can handle this," your physiology aligns with confidence. Neuroscience confirms that words literally change your brain. Positive affirmations, when repeated with intention, create new neural pathways that rewire how you respond to stress. Brain begins to associate challenges with possibility rather than danger. This is not magic, it's mental conditioning. You become what you repeatedly tell yourself. The way you speak to yourself also affects how you interpret feedback and failure. A person with negative self-talk views criticism as proof of inadequacy, while a person with positive self-talk sees it as a chance to grow. When you practice kind, constructive inner dialogue, failure stops feeling final. It becomes feedback. You learn to say, "This didn't work yet," instead of, "I'm not good enough." That single word, "yet," transforms despair into determination. Leaders who master self-talk cultivate resilience because they refuse to define themselves by one moment, one mistake, or one opinion. Their inner voice says, "I am still becoming," and that truth allows them to keep moving forward when others give up. Positive self-talk is also about identity. Every word you use reinforces who you believe you are. Language to yourself is filled with limitation. I can't. I always fail. I'm just not good at this. You're programming your subconscious to fulfill that prophecy. But if you consistently affirm, I'm learning, I'm adaptable, I'm capable of growth, your subconscious begins to align your behavior with those beliefs. This is not delusion, it's direction. You're guiding your mind toward the version of yourself you want to become. The mind doesn't resist what it's trained to believe. It works tirelessly to prove it true. That's why leaders speak to themselves with purpose. They know that every self-directed sentence is a seed, one that grows into confidence or insecurity, depending on how it's planted. Transforming your inner language begins with awareness. Notice how you talk to yourself in moments of stress or failure. Are you your biggest critic or your strongest ally? Many people speak to themselves in ways they'd never speak to a friend. They magnify mistakes, minimize progress, and reinforce shame. But real growth happens when you become your own encourager. When you begin to replace, I can't believe I messed up again, with, I'm learning from this and getting stronger. Your mind begins to heal from years of negative programming. Compassion toward yourself is not weakness, it's wisdom. It gives you the emotional safety to take risks, to fail, and to rise again. Without it, you stay trapped in fear of imperfection. Leaders who speak powerfully to themselves radiate quiet confidence. They don't need external validation because their inner voice already affirms their worth. This doesn't mean arrogance, it means inner peace. When you trust your own voice, you stop chasing approval from others. You communicate with authenticity rather than performance. You lead from conviction rather than insecurity. Your words become more grounded, more resonant, because they come from a place of self-acceptance. People feel that energy. They may not consciously understand it, but they sense it. The ease, the calm assurance, the presence of someone who is at peace with themselves. That kind of energy is magnetic. It draws trust because it communicates truth. However, positive self-talk requires consistency. You can't change a lifetime of inner criticism overnight. It's a practice, like training a muscle. The mind, left unchecked, defaults to negativity because it's wired to detect threat. But you can retrain it by catching negative thoughts early and reframing them. For example, when you catch yourself thinking, I'm terrible at this, add, for now. When you think, I always mess up, replace it with, sometimes I make mistakes, but I'm learning to do better. Over time, these small linguistic shifts reshape your emotional state. You move from defeat to determination, from doubt to discipline. The language of growth replaces the language of limitation. Your environment also influences your self-talk. The voices you surround yourself with, friends, colleagues, mentors, media, become echoes in your mind. Protect your mental environment as fiercely as you protect your physical one. Spend time with people who speak possibility, not poison. Read words that inspire, not instill fear. Listen to ideas that challenge you to expand, not shrink. Leadership begins in mental environments where growth is normalized, where failure is reframed as feedback, and where courage is celebrated over comfort. Surround yourself with such voices until they become your own. Affirmations are another powerful tool to reprogram your self-talk, but affirmations only work when they're believable and specific. Instead of saying, I am perfect, which your brain rejects, say, I am capable of learning what I need to succeed. Instead of, I am fearless, say, I am learning to act even when I'm afraid. Affirmations are bridges between your current reality and your desired mindset. Speak them out loud daily with emotion, because emotion anchors belief. Over time, these affirmations become your automatic inner dialogue. Begin to live them, not just say them. Positive self-talk also transforms your external communication because it softens your perception of others. When you stop judging yourself harshly, you stop judging others harshly. When you speak kindly to yourself, kindness becomes your default language. You no longer need to prove your worth through dominance or defensiveness. You communicate from security rather than fear. You become a leader who uplifts rather than undermines, who listens rather than lectures, who connects rather than commands. The way you treat your inner world becomes the blueprint for how you treat the outer one. Growth mindset, the foundation of positive self-talk, means believing that skills, intelligence, and communication abilities can be developed through effort and practice. It's the opposite of fixed mindset, which says, "This is just who I am." Growth-minded communicators see every interaction as a training ground for improvement. They don't fear mistakes because they know mistakes are part of mastery. They celebrate progress over perfection. When you adopt this mindset, every challenge becomes a classroom, every failure becomes a lesson, and every success becomes fuel for more growth. The language of "I can't" transforms into "I can learn." That one shift changes everything. To live with a growth mindset is to live with hope, to believe that who you are today is not the final version of you, that your words, habits, and mindset can evolve endlessly. It's to know that leadership is not a destination, but a daily decision to keep becoming better, kinder, stronger, and more aware. Positive self-talk fuels that evolution. It reminds you that no matter how hard the moment, you have the capacity to rise through it. Whispers courage when the world shouts doubt. It becomes your inner coach when fear tries to take over. In the end, how you speak to yourself defines how you shape your life. Every word is a seed, and every seed grows into the reality you live in. Speak growth. Speak grace. Speak strength. Because when your inner voice becomes your ally, your outer voice becomes unstoppable. You begin to lead with authenticity, communicate with confidence, and live with clarity. The journey of communication mastery doesn't end with technique, it ends with transformation. When your self-talk becomes your source of power rather than pain, you don't just speak like a leader. You live like one. You embody the truth that growth is always possible, that failure is never final, that your voice, both inner and outer, was always meant to change the world.